I'm standing.
Okay. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the next item on the agenda is a presentation of a proclamation for National Therapy Animal Dog Day, or Animal Day, I should say, not dog. We just happen to have one here. Mary asked if I would do this, and I know that they're always out and about in the community big time with, is it Maggie or?
Yes,
Maggie. And going around to the schools and nursing home, right?
Yep, library,
Library also.
dot copies,
Good. And that's a good thing to do. So, so from the Office of the Mayor, New Prague, Minnesota, National Therapy Animal Day, whereas National Therapy Animal Day created by Pet Partners, an organization whose mission is to improve human health and well-being through the human-animal bond, has been designated as April 30th to recognize and honor therapy animals and to raise awareness and educate the public about the role therapy animals play in enhancing the health and well-being of humans. And whereas therapy animals are different from service animals in that they are not trained for a specific task and do not have the same legal standing as service animals. And whereas, according to UCLA Health, animal-assisted therapy can, among other things, lower anxiety, increase mental stimulation, lower blood pressure, and diminish overall pain. And whereas therapy animal teams make millions of visits per year in settings such as hospitals, nursing homes, schools, and hospice. And whereas therapy animal teams interact with a variety of people in our community, including veterans, seniors, patients, students facing literacy challenges, and those approaching end of life. And whereas these exceptional therapy animals who partner with their human companions bring comfort and healing to those in need. And whereas the City of New Prague encourages our citizens to celebrate our therapy animals and their human handlers and salute the service of therapy animal teams in our community and in communities across the nation. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City of New Prague designates April 30th, 2023 as National Therapy Animal Day.
Who do we have with you?
This is Maggie.
Oh, that's Maggie.
Yeah, and I'm Mary.
Oh, I know you.
So should I give it to Maggie? We gotta do this.
Okay, for the paper, Maggie, turn. Sit. Sit.
Smile.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, very nice. Kind of you.
Yep, well.
We're all over town and all over the metro area, so we were at the Capitol last week.
Were you?
Yeah.
Make a visit to our Senate, our local reps?
Yes.
Good,
Yeah, thank you very
good.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks. Thank you. Bye, Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie.
All right, the next item on the agenda is approval of the regular agenda. Does somebody want to make the motion?
Just ask one change if we
Yep.
could move the vulnerability update up to general business so we could talk about that.
I'm sorry, the what up?
12B up
Oh.
to 11B maybe.
True North vulnerability, okay, up to general business. Okay,
I'd just like to have some understanding about that.
okay.
Some questions.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the changes that Councilmember Wolf had suggested.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Sean, seconded by Maggie to approve the agenda as corrected. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. 2023 State and Utility Improvement Project, proposal for construction materials testing services.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Mayor, City Council, in front of you is, we went out for quotes on the testing of the 2023 CIP. We asked Braun Intertech and American Engineer Testing. Those are the two that we've always worked with. They're the two larger firms around this area that do pretty much all the testing. I heard back from American Engineering saying that they were not interested this time to give us a quote due to that Braun Intertech has been selected for the last 10 years. So Braun Intertech submitted an estimate of $64,450, but again, that is an hourly deal. So they kind of we give them the projection of what the work will be, and then they give us an estimate of testing, drive time, all that. So after seeing what the contractor came out with the scheduling, their schedule is actually pretty aggressive, where they're gonna be bringing in two digging crews. So the work, as you probably saw, the schedule looks like it's gonna get done in about a month and a half sooner than we expected. That should bring down this estimate, their estimate quite a bit, because a lot of that is drive time in there. They'll be able to do multiple testing on site. So I do anticipate being less than the 64,000, but it is my recommendation to go with Braun Intertech for the 2023 CIP testing.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed that schedule looked really aggressive.
Yeah, they got, like we talked about before, they're out of Mankato, but they're also got a big project in Montgomery. I think that'll actually kind of help share crews back and forth. But
Okay.
we had our pre-con meeting last week, and it sounds promising as long as weather cooperates.
Okay, great. Any questions? Otherwise, I make a motion to accept the proposal from Braun Intertech.
Second.
Sean made a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, the public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. If anybody wants to talk to the council, either present or online, now's your chance. Okay. Not hearing anything, we'll move on. Public hearing of amending and restating the enabling resolution establishing an economic development authority for the city of New Prague. There's a public hearing on that. Are you gonna give a little spiel before I open that?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So before you is a potential revision of the EDA bylaws. So as kind of some background for this, I think it was a little over a year ago. Can't remember the exact question that came up, but there was a question as to what the powers of the EDA were. And looking back into it, it had appeared that the last time any sort of rules had been set up for the EDA was in 1991. Before that, the EDA actually in 1990 was established. So we've gone through one rule change, I guess. And I did include both of those resolutions in your packet to look at. But talking to City Attorney Scott Riggs, he recommended going through a process of kind of updating the rules to make sure that everybody's kind of clear of what's going on, as well as just kind of ensuring that rules have been modernized and stuff isn't hanging out there that shouldn't be. So that first rendition, I guess, is in your packet for tonight. The EDA has spent a few months kind of looking at it, while ultimately the city council is the one who rules on the powers of the EDA. I did want to give the EDA a chance to be able to look at and kind of agree by the proposals that we were bringing forward. Just a few of the changes that will immediately jump off the page. First one is the length. So this amended version is quite a bit more comprehensive than the first two versions. The first two versions both filled about 1 page with their regulations, and this one is a number of pages. Also, Section 2 of the previous resolution in 1991 did not allow the EDA to transact land without City Council's approval. The updated version, and this idea was taken from a number of EDAs that we looked at. would allow the EDA to be able to purchase or sell land, assuming it had the funds available within its specific EDA fund that had been either set aside through a yearly tax levy or through their gaining of funds, say from the sale of land. They would end up needing council approval if for some reason they did not have the funds and would have to borrow and or otherwise transfer those funds from somewhere else in the city. And then section 6 of the previous resolution allowed for the city council to transfer funds from the EDA's designated funds back to the city if those funds would be directed towards reducing the debt levy. This is a power that is allowed by the state if a city desires to give itself that power or that backstop in the EDA. In the proposed version, this has been removed. The reason why I'm proposing to remove it is to allow the EDA to build up funds for large projects without fear that maybe they see a project coming 15 years down the road, but it's going to take some time to get there, and then a future city council comes in 15 years from now and says, hey, we really want to take those funds and use them for something else, even though there's been this direction kind of going forward. So I guess the proposal is in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I don't know if we're necessarily ready to vote on it tonight unless you all are, and fully take some time to kind of read through them and formulate questions, that sort of thing. But there is a required public hearing to be had, and so that would be for tonight, should anybody wish to speak on this matter.
What was the impetus for amending section 2 to allow the EDA to transact land without council approval?
The impetus really came back to when I was looking at other cities. I think that seems to be pretty common in there, especially as cities grow, that the EDA has been given a little bit more authority to not necessarily have to go back to the city council all the time if those funds are available, or if the EDA specifically itself holds the land. So say these lots out in the industrial park. Since the EDA is the holder of the land, they could make that move. The other being that it allows the EDA to move a little bit faster if for some reason they have a client that wishes to move things along quickly. Sometimes I don't know if we've ever heard it here, but I know I've heard in other positions where they just complain that the city takes so long, and if we go through a private seller or something like that, it'll go much faster. So that would be some of the advantages, I guess, of keeping it, of allowing the EDA to move it, but it's certainly not something that I would say is a deal breaker by any means. It's just, some cities do and some cities don't.
So then the EDA is a legal entity that holds property?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so just probably one of the more famous EDA holdings of land was the land underneath the community center. The EDA held that land for a number of years before transferring it over to the city, just for legality's sake. I know Councilman Wolf may remember some of the transactions. I think he was on the EDA at that time.
Yeah, and just to add a comment there, EDAs are structured or consist of or structured in different ways, different cities. I think Shakopee is an example. The city council is the EDA. So when you say that they're different, in some cities they're not really different. So you can take that into, so when you say that the EDA doesn't need the authority of the city council,
Yeah,
a lot of
fair.
cities, the city is the EDA.
Yep.
So it's kind of what the philosophy of the city you want it to be.
Okay.
I'm a little confused. You said that, things can't move quickly enough, but certainly, at least this board meets twice a month.
Yeah,
The EDA only meets once a month, and really within 5 to 8 days, it could be on this agenda and still retain the right to, I can't see that would slow anything down tremendously. However, even if in a situation that I can't think of right now, if that were to happen, we could still put this board together
yep.
at any time, and then,
Yeah, and I'm not saying we've had any complaints here about the city moving slowly. It's just one of those things where occasionally in the public sector, somebody wants to go right now, and we'd have to schedule a special city EDA meeting and then schedule a special city council meeting. So 99.9% of the circumstances, it's not. a problem. It's just, there may be that one person that it's a
Well,
problem for.
I would look at it, you're probably, if the council didn't have just the EDA, cause we have to have a public hearing as well as the EDA on those properties for the sales, didn't we?
I believe it's only the city council that had to have the,
Oh, the EDA does, yeah.
And then the council also does. Double, no.
Nope.
I thought we did.
Nope.
Oh.
They just had to, at this point, ratify the decisions of the EDA per the bylaws.
So with the last couple transactions that took place, it was just them getting ready until it brought to the council. It wasn't us holding it up, was it?
For the last two sales, no, we have not had any holdup on.
No.
on
It was
yeah.
them getting the finals prepped and then
Yep.
coming for the final approval. Okay.
correct.
Well, I guess the situation that I have is that, and it isn't always tremendously a lot of money, but it certainly can become a lot of money when the community is growing as we are, is that it allows unelected people to make financial decisions on behalf of the city. And personally, I mean, we hear about it all the time with the Met Council and how people are upset with that. Certainly on a much grander scale, but I still really believe that it should sit with the council when we're talking about city funds. And I'm kind of curious, looking back in these minutes, that Mayor Jurek, you were
No,
on the council.
no, I wasn't. That was my dad.
Oh, that was your dad, okay.
Yes.
Cause he voted against it.
Yep, I see that.
God, those jerks.
That was my dad. Yeah, I
So
don't know why.
that's the only reason I'm against it. I mean, if there was a case that you guys, that the EDA could make, that it needed to move really quickly or something, or that a project got nixed because we couldn't put it together quickly, but I just don't see that happening, and I just feel a lot better with elected officials having the checkbook,
Nope, that's.
personally.
And I agree with you, Sean. I just had a little pause when I read those decisions being made without council input.
So the other thing that I didn't note here as I'm kind of scrolling through it, to make note, this new, say bylaws, the composition of the EDA would allow for up to 2 people who do not currently reside in the community, but do have, basically
Businesses.
interest in the growth of the community. Well, to be on the EDA board. So let's say, for example, somebody owned a large business here in town, but didn't necessarily live in town. We had a long conversation in the EDA about what this would look like, and ultimately, it did come back to no more than 2 non-residents may serve on the board, so that way at no point is there ever a majority on the EDA that is non-resident. But it also, all members must be appointed by the city council. So the city council could say no, or you know what, yes, maybe somebody's lived here their whole life and they just bought a house just outside of town. And for all intents and purposes, they're basically still part of the community. We will allow that person to continue serving on the board. So it does allow a little bit of flexibility for that.
And I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Okay.
I guess, were there any other questions at this time?
I mentioned at the EDA meeting and the issue about the city being able to take back money. I think that's the, forget what covenant that is.
Under the 1991 version,
Oh, I guess it's, yeah,
it was
okay.
number 6 on page 32.
I guess I still support that, basically in line with the, I think the comments I've heard maybe Sean saying is that the city is really, should really be guiding what the EDA should look like in the community and should still remain to have the authority to take back funds if it feels it should. I can't see in our situation that we're gonna ever have a lot of money like we do now that we're holding for the streets. But it's conceivable in the future that might happen. But we don't know what the makeup of the EDA is gonna be in the future and how it's gonna work. So I just think the statute allows that I would still like to maintain that, even though I think in this draft you've taken it out.
It has been removed in this draft, but it is a power that the state allows you to place into the bylaws of your E EDA.
So I agree with you, Bruce. I think that if, you know, money is designated for EDA use, that it should stay in that fund as a designated fund and not have the potential of it being yanked away and used for.
Actually, I'm saying it
You're
should
the
have the
opposite?
potential.
He's going the other way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if what are your concerns of it going the other way around?
Well, just that it sits there, it's not being used for the purposes and intended, or the makeup of the EDA is different, they might have a different way of working that just sits there and languishes.
Okay.
I can't envision exactly if the philosophy of the city and how they want to use an EDA changes, then there may not be the same need for it.
So I will say, Bruce, as a power that the city council would have to combat languishing funds, is the city council would have the ability basically to stop the yearly tax levy. So
Right.
an EDA could come to you with its budget, say of, we need $75,000 for next year, and the city council could say, you guys have $1 million sitting in your fund and you're not clearly advancing towards a project. So you can spend your $75,000, but we're not gonna levy for it this year, you'll just have to draw the fund down.
Right, but the example, to further that example, you might have $500,000 sitting in cash, not being used for 5, 6, 7 years, not providing any incentives with it or anything, but just sitting there. Just changing the levy amount isn't gonna motivate the EDA to do something with the
Fair.
money.
But then
So that would be a scenario.
yeah, but then the bylaws could be amended if there's a trend in that direction, right? So let's say that 4 or 5 years, we're seeing that this money is sitting there, it's not advancing toward anything. The council could then say, we need to amend the bylaws to allow the city to take some of that money and use it as, you know, in some other project or fund or whatever.
And if you have
it is.
3 of the 5 city council members agreeing with you, then you could
Right.
change the bylaws.
Right.
Or just leave it the way it is, and that gives us that ability.
The city council ability.
It still controls the checkbook, yes. I mean, like you said, it's unforeseen what we might need $500,000 for, but something that we can't think of right now, but we might need, not me, I won't be on it anymore, but some future city council might need that 500,000 for an emergency situation.
Yeah, and I
Well,
guess
well-
that's the risk we're trying to
And
guard
so,
against,
I
yeah.
mean, the state, obviously, there's ways around it, but the state law is specific that for the city council to pull the money, it has to be used directly towards debt levy. Now, you could argue, well, if your debt levy is already above $500,000, by moving that back, that you're really just moving funds around to pay for stuff, but, in theory, you couldn't just take the money and use it for whatever you wanted, it would have to be used directly towards paying down debt levy. According to state law, if you were to pull the funds out, it has to be used towards debt levy.
Right now, that's the way it sits right now.
Yeah, so that's.
So
what
their
state-
cash balance right now, if we wanted to use it for the dog park or something,
You would not be able to do
we'd
that.
have to pay down the,
You'd have to use it to pay down debt levy.
And that's why I think it's kind of an even balance. I think that's the way that's written. You're not gonna have city councils taking the money arbitrarily. It's really, as I would see it, is a change of philosophy, how you wanna run your EDA, that you might do it. And like I say, I can't see that there's gonna be large amounts of money in the coffers like we have right now, but
no, I can't either, but you still, it goes back to the unelected officials being able to do something that maybe would run contrast to what the council wanted, but we would be powerless to stop it. And we're the elected officials. I mean, people just sign up for the EDA board and all of a sudden they have $500,000 and you get a majority that changes every year by 1 or 2 people typically. The money's theirs and it might go in direct opposition of what the council's feelings are. That's the only fear that I have, is just giving the checkbook to
Yeah.
unelected officials that don't have to answer to anybody.
Well, the city council still has control over the annual budget, and in this scenario, still has control over that. But within the budget, the EDA has the authority to operate and write checks out, so we would never control the checkbook necessarily, only through the budget process. But
Well, maybe I'm misunderstanding that then.
But you are right, Sean, and I think that you'd have control more if you saw spending you didn't like. And say, well, we're gonna pull these funds then this year to pay down some debt levy instead of you continuing to spend in that way.
What if they already spent it though? Or
I mean, if they've already spent it, the money's gone.
Right, right. That's just it. I don't, they could theoretically take all the money out and spend it for a project that might run contrast to the council. I don't really see a reason to change the bylaws right now. I mean,
Other than those couple, or like the,
well, even,
Residency.
I don't wanna handcuff I don't think we are handcuffing the EDA. I mean, if they needed to come, even if we had to hold a special, meeting just to discuss that attitude, or that project, we could do that.
Yeah,
So-
I don't see that in the past that we've, really run into a situation where these proposed amendments would really gain us anything.
Well, so I guess looking at the whole thing, I would recommend going through this change. I mean, and we can make some of the changes like about the things that you may wanna keep, but there's a lot in here that more fully lays out and kind of explains what the EDA is doing and isn't quite so vague. I mean, you get into, just being very specific about, that the EDA having to submit an annual budget or reporting to the city, explaining that they have to operate within economic development districts. Things that may seem obvious, but also just kind of further laying out and making clear what exactly is this power, cause, if you come back and look through our current stuff, it's just very short and it leaves a lot out, and people might start asking questions, well, what can we do as an EDA here? And that's kind of what triggered this whole updates. And so, looking back, I mean, if we wanna keep city council's approval on land transactions, that's an easy one to change in the bylaws. If we want, to, have council have the authority to be able to pull funds from the EDA to pay down the levy, that's an easy one that we can slide in here. But I wouldn't scrap the whole update just for a couple things that we want to remain the
Yeah.
same from the
Right.
old
And
one.
I would vote for everything that you suggested, except the council gets to keep the checkbook.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's fine, yeah, just the way you guys were talking, it almost sounded like, you know what, let's just throw this whole thing out and keep it
Oh,
as
no.
is.
No,
cause it needs to
But
be
it-
updated.
It would have been nice to have this in red line if possible, just to determine, what from the original is kept and what's new. So my first read through was just very unclear of,
Okay, and I can try to do that, I will say it will be a whole lot of red, because if you look at the last one, it's a single page with 7 bullet points, compared to this one, possibly if I bullet pointed everything, would have upwards of 50
so
bullet points.
then do the reverse, just point out what's
Yeah, so
original.
I can go through and I can kind of highlight and say, this was original, or this was not original.
That would be very helpful.
Okay. So I guess asking the first question, I only heard from, 2 council members. In terms of authority on land transactions, do
Keep
we
it with
want
the
to
council.
keep that with the council?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and the ability to, pull funds from the EDA to pay down debt levy, do we wanna keep that with the council?
Yes.
Yes.
that's my vote.
I got 2
Yep.
yeses.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
I said it, didn't you hear me?
Okay, I can put those 2 back in, I guess if you guys wanna take the next couple weeks then to look at this, if you have any other questions, I will also, put together a reverse red line copy, we'll call it, for the next council meeting, so we can review it again.
Okay,
Real helpful, thank you.
yep,
The point that Josh made about the composition is the biggest change for the city. We don't have, I don't think, any committee or board that allows non-residents.
Yep, so
this
for every
is-
single board must
be a
be
big
made up of
change.
residents.
well, golf board, golf board is.
Used to be, but I think that went away, didn't
I
it?
think
They're all
that's
New
in city,
Prague.
yeah.
Oh, it
Yes.
is now again?
All
Yeah.
of the boards and commissions aside from.
Yep, so
proposed
this
EDA.
would be the one board that would allow for a non-resident. Like I said, the person must either be a resident or have interest in the growth of the community. And the city council would have the final say if that person does in fact, they believe, have interest in the growth. And if for some reason you got two people that faked their way on, you are not allowed to have more than two non-residents, so they could never basically become an overruling party at that point.
But if there is concern, they can be asked to resign.
Correct, yeah, I mean, city council has power to, of the makeup of the boards.
Yep.
So even in the middle of their term, we can say that you're no longer on that if,
Conflict of interest, potential conflict of interest. I don't know.
Yes, so section 2.6, an EDA commissioner may be removed by the city council as provided by Minnesota statutes. Just another thing that was not in the current ones, or in the 1991 copy. If you go to page 27, at the bottom of the page, section 2.6.
And
Really
do we-
supportive of that issue, and I think EDA is unique in that way, because we have people that have significant financial interest in the community itself, but don't have their residence in the city limits.
Right,
And a lot of those people over the years have really contributed to either networking or helping bring other people into town, or provided leads for us to pursue. And oftentimes those people really add a lot to the value of the discussion and what kind of takes place, so. I'm really supportive of that part of it.
and I'm not opposed to it either, at all.
It's a good thing. Okay, so do we still have a public hearing then, or are we gonna?
Yes, so yeah, we can still definitely hold a public hearing on the stuff in front of us, because anyone commenting it would be able to make comments on the changes you guys want to see.
Okay.
So,
So then I'll open the public hearing. Does anybody want to comment on the public hearing in regards to the amending and restating of the enabling resolution establishing an economic development authority for the city of New Prague? Does anybody want to comment?
and
wanna
there are people
comment?
online.
Yes.
We want to make sure that.
I want to make sure online also. Does anybody want to comment? Nobody online that wants to comment? Okay. So with that, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved?
Second.
There's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Bruce. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right,
So then I guess for this then, coming into just general discussion on this, I'll make those revisions and bring it back. Next meeting.
Thank you.
perfect, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the variance to allow construction of garage addition to an existing detached garage located at 215 Main Street East as proposed by the Church of St. Wenceslaus, New Prague, Minnesota.
All right, I'll take that. I have a quick PowerPoint.
Yep.
If it'll work. There we go. So give you a little background information on the report as it was reviewed at the Planning Commission meeting back on March 22nd. Background on the site, obviously it's a church consisting of several buildings, including the garage, the parish home, school, church building, and then associated parking lot that is shared with Mayo Hospital. Specific to the request they're making is they want to expand the garage that's on the site, which is about 36 by 50 feet or 1,800 square feet. That's already above the 1,000 square foot maximum accessory building size for the RL 70 zoning district, which the church is located in. And they're requesting to add almost 1,000 square feet, 936 square feet, and that will bring that total shed or garage up to just over 2,700 feet. Currently, the garage stores maintenance equipment, and they would like to expand that to allow the resident priest vehicle and then future priest next summer to park out from the elements, so in the garage. So that is really the intent of the building on that property. Give you a little overview here again. The map on the right is the zoning map kind of the light blue-gray color as it looks on the map, shows that the church is in the RL 70 single-family residential zoning district. And we're surrounded by the pink color, which is the B1 Central Business District. So it is residential, but it's really not a residential use in the fact that churches are a conditional use in that district. So it is unique. It's a large property, a little more commercial-esque in its use and operation, so we don't feel from a staff perspective, nor did the planning commission, that adding some more square footage above that 1,000-foot limit was a huge problem. It actually prevents more items from being stored outside, so felt that was a good change. Here's the site map of the, click through there, of the red area. You can kind of see on the east side of the garage, the addition to the existing garage there. They will actually turn those two parking spaces on the very east end of the garage into 90-degree parking stall, or parking spaces for people to park. So we won't lose any parking. And then one other thing they are doing is repairing, or I should say moving, the sanitary sewer line that would have run underneath the garage addition. They're rerouting that. It was an old clay sewer line, so they're rerouting that around the garage addition. So taking care of that issue as well. Just some photos here again, if you can kind of see my pointer. It will kind of block the view from the parking lot of the back side of the parish home, but again, we'll provide that indoor parking for the resident priests at the facility. Just another view here. These are the two parking spaces. They'll basically be turned into kind of 90-degree parking, and will remain on that portion of the garage on the east side there. So ultimately, the planning commission did recommend approval with the findings contained in the resolution that were drafted and in the packet for your review here tonight.
That's almost where the old garage used to sit before they tore it down and built this one. All right. So with that, Father, do you need a comment, or do you want to comment?
The only thing, the planning council asked if the parish council had approved it.
Okay.
They hadn't by that meeting, but since then they have all approved.
All right, thank you. So I would look to somebody to offer resolution 23-04-03-01.
So move to approve resolution 23040301.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Maggie, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
All right, the second item is a conditional use permit to allow 5,000 square feet of retail use in a business located in the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District at 100 2nd Avenue Southwest, as proposed by Corey Newby.
All right, so I have another PowerPoint for you for this one as well tonight. That loaded up here. Maybe it'll work. Yeah, we were just there. Let me unplug it and plug it in again. All right. Well, there we go. All right, perfect. So the applicant for this request is Urban Flea Market. Representative Corey Newby is actually online. If we get to have any questions, he can answer those online. But we'll run through the summary report here from the Planning Commission. So as the mayor indicated, the I-1 Light Industrial District is the zoning that's kind of in the pink color on the overhead there. This is a property that was the old flouring mill in town. It's been not operating for a few years here now, but the Urban Flea Market has been occupying the very south portion of the warehouse portion in the building. There's also some other warehousing occurring just north of where Urban Flea Market is in the building for auto wash systems and MVE. as well. So there is activity going on there, just not in the way it had been previously.
The guy who broke your handrail leaning on it getting downstairs.
Okay,
Still
Oh,
up,
no.
but we'll get it covered.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
thanks, Father.
Back in November, you may recall, the or the city council amended the zoning ordinance to allow, by a conditional use permit, some limited retail sales in the industrial district. That partially was an amendment that was made due to activity we knew that was continuing to grow at the Urban Flea Market Mill property there, and then another business in the industrial park. But we had also received some complaints of vehicles parking on the public streets when larger events were occurring at Urban Flea Market, and then that kind of led us to some further discussions with the operator and owner, Mr. Newby, and ultimately the application for the conditional use permit to get everything in line with zoning ordinance, and then also take a look at some potential building code issues in the building. So the applicant does intend to, and worked out a deal with the property owner to stripe and be dedicated for 52 parking spots in the paved portion of the parking lot off Second Avenue Southwest. And that will require Mock Lumber to actually move some of their materials and supplies kind of behind the building near the railroad track. And that will, I believe, and the planning commission agreed, would clean up the look of the property from the roadway as well. Again, one of the issues with the building code in the building was regarding having bathrooms available for the retail customers in the building. It was found that there actually is some bathrooms that were within 500 feet per the building code of Mr. Newby's retail area. However, he is seeking to construct a new bathroom area, actually 2 bathrooms, within the space that he's leasing at this point, rather than have customers walk a bit of a distance, but within code requirement to get to the bathrooms. Planning Commission, again, they reviewed at the March 22nd meeting. We had a public hearing, and really the only comment received was from the applicant, Mr. Corey Newby, specifically mentioning the bathrooms and noting that he plans to construct within his retail space those bathrooms. And it was also pointed out that the owners had made some improvements to some of the gravel area near the back of the building for Mock Lumber to move their items to storage behind and out of the public view of the building. And then finally, he simply suggested that he thought it would be nice if the decorative fencing that the city had installed along Main Street could continue down Second Avenue, which really isn't part of the purview of the conditional use permit, but just a comment noted at the hearing. So on the overhead location here, one of the things we had talked about, rather than having Mr. Newby build new bathrooms in the southern portion of the building, you can kind of see where I'm pointing there on the overhead where he's occupying, is that he alternately could have moved into the area where Auto Wash Systems and MVE were located. He's determined he does not want to do that, which is fine. The parking lot on the next slide here is what will be striped and will meet the zoning ordinance requirement. Actually, more than the required number of spaces will be provided that will stripe and have the adequate drive aisles and other criteria met for the parking lot there. So that will certainly be good for Mr. Newby's customers. It will leave the loading dock open and available to the warehousing function. Basically, the area between Mr. Newby's building and the south end and where the parking lot starts is still loading dock area, so that will remain available for that purpose. Just a couple of photos of the site for everybody to your bearing. Here's that loading dock area and that right side picture where the big giant snow pile is and the other materials. That's where the parking lot would be striped. Here's kind of a photo of the back side of the building where Mock Lumber would be storing their equipment, or I should say materials, outside of the general public purview, which I think is a great thing. And then as it is right now, the entrance to Urban Flea Market, with the green door being the main entrance. The overhead garage door is actually used by the building owner for some maintenance equipment. But Should be a easy route in and out of the parking lot, into the building, and, ultimately, the planning commission did recommend approval of the conditional use permit. We had a number of conditions in the resolution, basically, the parking lot being the big one, being striped, and then, meeting within 6 months of approval of the conditional use permit if it is approved tonight, that they have to meet building code requirements. And I do note that they, did have the, code analysis completed by APRO, Development, that we received last week. And, should have a plan forward to, get the building, completely under, compliance. But we didn't have any issues with, life health, or life safety issues. The building is fully sprinklered, and we had, adequate exiting in there, so we didn't have anything that was like, we need to shut them down immediately type situations. But, at the point with their growth and their continued operation, this is the good time to get everything, in order where it should be, and I think, we've got a good plan forward here. So with that, I'll just kind of put, the site map with the parking lot on the overhead here, should you have any questions about that. And again, Mr. Newby is online if you had any questions for him as well.
All right. Does the council have any questions?
I just have a kind of a general question more about the construct of the conditional use. Does Corey have the legal ability to enter, or does he have the lease of the parking area as well? Does he have control over that parcel?
Yes, we had, written approval from the property owner that he does have the ability to stripe that portion of the parking lot for his use. And in part of that agreement was when mock lumber was moved, to that back side of the building there.
So he has legal authority to use that parcel?
Correct.
Parts of it?
Yep.
And then, I guess tangent to that then is mock lumber. Our resolution basically states that mock lumber will move their stuff, but how do we enforce something against a third party that's not part of the?
I would say in the
Agreement.
fact that if he doesn't get moved, the, Mr. Newby's resolution will not, or he won't be able to meet the conditions of the conditional use permit because there will be other items there, basically bringing him out of compliance with the conditional use permit by not having the available parking striped as required.
So the way we're saying it, then that's just his issue then,
Correct.
if it's not taken care of.
Yep.
It's just I'm not used to seeing a third party.
It's a little
Conditional
unique
use
that,
thing,
that obviously the applicant is Mr. Newby, the property owner signed off on the application, signed off on the agreement for the parking, and then signed off that they would be moving mock lumber to another portion of the site. I don't know that mock lumber was necessarily thrilled with moving, but that was what came to be the agreement from the building owner, property owner, down to Mr. Newby and mock
Okay.
lumber.
I can see how the owner has legal ability to ask mock lumber to
Yep.
move their things, but I don't see how Mr. Newby can.
He cannot, yeah, it's
Have the
the
authority
property
to do
owner,
it.
but yes, we have all the paperwork to support that, on file before we considered this,
Okay.
at the planning commission level.
Well, I think it's a nice resolution to the issue then.
Any other questions of the council? Mr. Newby, do you have any questions?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll offer motion, or the resolution number 23-04-03-02, conditional use permit number C3-2023 to allow 5,000 square foot of retail use in a business located in I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District at 100 Second Avenue Southwest, as proposed by Corey Newby, Urban Flea Market. Is there a second?
Second.
Bruce made the second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
All right, now we're down to general business. Award tree inventory contract to Bolton and Mink.
All right, I will give you a quick overview of that. So with our Emerald Ash Borer grant that we received in 2022, we did receive $30,000 actually in that grant for a public tree inventory to be completed. We had an initial estimate from city engineer SCH that they thought it would be $30,000, so that's what we applied for. We put out the request for proposals, back on the 23rd of February and had that open for, about a month. And we ended up receiving only one proposal back from Bolton and Mank. We did not get one from SEH. They included, to me that they were not, interested in proposing at this point. I believe some of that had to do with the fact that Bolton and Mank recently completed some GIS, utility, database work and a mapping, program that basically we are, just starting to use as of maybe a week and a half ago, roughly, Matt. And I think they felt like they already had the infrastructure there to, host the data and, get that input. So, ultimately, that was the only proposal we received at the amount of just under $12,000, so $11,732 to be exact. And this would, complete a public tree inventory on all of our public park property. I think if this goes well, and I've talked to the DNR about this, we could potentially expand that to use the remainder of the grant money, otherwise it'll just be given back. But something we could do in 2024 would be to, continue the inventory on city property, like City Hall, the utilities, power plant building, those other facilities, as well as some public right-of-way, for boulevard trees. But I think we want to wrap this one up first here, and we'll talk to the DNR and see if we can get approval to expand that further, since we got such a good price from Bolton and Mank on the work. But they did indicate they are ready to go and can get the inventory started here yet in April, once the buds start popping on the trees a little bit. And that's all they need to do their identification. But ultimately, we'll have that dropped into our online GIS application and have a great inventory of all of our trees. And they will include training that we will continue to update and keep up in the data on our own with our GPS units that Utilities and Public Works has for water, storm, sewer, sanitary sewer, et cetera. So same program, and will integrate very well.
That's through Bolton and Mank already, those programs, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So it'll be very seamless, and I think that ultimately saved a lot of money for this project, that they already had that underway.
Okay. Any
And
questions?
Barb did hand out the
Yep.
agreement here for everybody to take a look at, so I apologize for that coming out a little late, but.
I thought it was in there, but cause I saw this.
Yep, that is the typical agreement we've had from Bolton and Mank for other projects we've done in the past, so it's just specific to the dollar amount and
Oh, okay.
that they'll finish the project here in '23.
All right. Any questions of the council? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve that tree survey.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Sean. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Maggie seconds it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right, the next item under general business is True North Vulnerability Assessment Update. Bruce had a question on this.
I'm assuming when we had the presentation that this is meant to be the quarterly or whatever update we had posed to them.
Yes.
Provide. I've seen a number of management reports for updates for these types of things. I'm just a little confused by this one. I don't see how, I'm not able to match things up, like what the issue,
Yeah,
the
so,
definition of what it was critical or not, and then what was done. And I guess one of my questions was, did they do all the work, or do staff do any of the work?
so they did all of the work. Basically what they did is they took the reports that were given, and the reports laid out what was critical, high, medium, and then low as these are here, but not, I'll say not a big deal as much as it could be. And they laid out this Excel sheet, and this was my fault. I didn't actually scroll all the way down to the bottom when I was double checking this packet. I didn't realize it came out as like 4 pages. This was one Excel document that basically stretches across, and let's say,
Oh,
yeah, and so actually I am printing it as a PDF right now, and I can email it to you as a single document.
well, I wonder, instead of taking a lot of time, would you mind?
Yep.
Just redoing it next meeting, and I think this is a serious enough
Yeah.
issue that it should be reviewed and the council should actually accept it.
Mm-hmm.
That there should be a process that we get used to for future councils to.
Yep.
Because we will be doing this probably
for the
On a
rest
regular
of?
basis, I would think yearly or every couple years. or-
I know CTS recommended usually every 3 to 5 years, basically running through the process again.
And this is the first go-around, so I'd just like for us to, set up a consistent procedure for future,
Yeah,
in a format that you're comfortable with.
yeah, I can have that kind of laid out in an easier to read format, and we'll bring it back so we can discuss it a little farther.
I know the topic is identified, but a short description of what that is. Because I remember we talked about a number of issues, like,
Yep.
I remember the baseball stadium and things like that, but I don't remember exactly what's tied to what, and if we could have a little more of a management-y kind of report.
Okay, yep. I will try to get that back, because I know I'll probably have to get with CTS too to kind of help me bullet point those out into words we can all understand. And so, if not for April 17th, I'll try to get it here for that first meeting in May.
Sounds good.
That would be real helpful. We're not really understanding some
Yeah,
of
I'm
the.
looking at that and going, I saw that too, and I'm going,
Wait, you don't understand what Trek TCP IP stack multiple vulnerabilities means?
that one I did, but it was the one
Oh, the
after
other
that.
Okay, was there any other questions about that right now? Or something you want to see with those?
I just think a bit more of a layperson's description would be helpful.
Okay,
I agree.
I will work with them on that. I know as somebody who used to be in a department, you start talking your departmental speak, and everyone else glazes over because they don't live in that world.
And acronyms for me, I gotta have it, you know,
Yep, I will do that.
these, thanks.
I thought there were issues too that was kind of a discretion on either the city or the staff to decide how we're gonna remediate
Yep,
and reduce the exposure, and I don't know if any of those things occurred or not.
so those were a lot of the low issues that didn't necessarily get listed in here. When I bring it back, I'll include a copy of the 4 reports again that they gave us. And I can also put those on the share drive for you guys to look at too.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yep.
we're down to miscellaneous, I'll go around the horn. Bruce, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay, I don't, well, I shouldn't say I don't, I read the tobacco violation thing, were you gonna speak to that a little, or?
That was, yeah, I wasn't gonna necessarily speak to it. That was kind of an FYI.
FYI, I
of
saw
those. 3 businesses did fail their tobacco compliance checks, and we sent out letters last week for each of those.
Okay.
So,
last week they were sent out, they have, 20 days,
I believe that's correct.
or
20
is
days.
it 20 business days?
I don't remember if it's exact. I believe it's 20 days.
It's 20 days, I believe.
All right,
It says 20 days, yeah.
okay,
But we're past that, right? Because that's from the date of the violation, right?
It's from the date of the letter being sent out. So for some reason, the city didn't get their letters
Oh,
out
I'm
for
sorry.
2
I misread
years. It wouldn't be on them for our slowness. So it starts with the date of the receipt of notice.
I saw that 2 of them each had their second violation. If there's a third, what's the next step?
So third violation goes to a fine of $1,000 and allows for revoking of their license anywhere from 30 days to a year.
okay. I'm done. Do you have anything?
I just had a question I've been asked by many people. Have we started to report, the police report? Seems like it's grown exponentially here over the last few weeks, and I've had multiple questions from a lot of different people wanting to know, are you just reporting more, or?
The report that we had submitted previously didn't include ancillary things that we would do, such as permits and other things. So we had a request from the Times to submit all public data.
Oh, okay.
So anything that's public, they wish to receive, and that's probably why you're seeing the uptick in the amount that's reported
Okay.
in the
I'll
paper.
pass that along. Is there, I noticed there was a lot of verbal warnings being given out for minor violations, and I'm okay with that. And matter of fact, thank you for, because you could ticket them theoretically, and I would probably get more phone calls and more comments if there was actually fines involved, but, has there been more stops? Is there an active?
You know, I think as we've added staff now and people are getting done with training, we talked about that kind of with our numbers at the beginning of the year, how things kind of trended downward because we were spending more time training. Whereas now, officers are getting off of training, so there's more coverage. So we're not just running, for lack of a better term, a skeleton crew at times. So there's more opportunities for us to take those enforcement actions and be out there and make the community safer. You know, you spoke about the tickets and writing of tickets. It's all about changing the behavior, right? And however that can be best accomplished is what we're trying to do. So, you know, if that's the best case scenario is a warning rather than a citation, if we're changing that behavior, then we're accomplishing our goal.
Okay. I just, that can be a double-edged sword though, because there's the comments that I've heard that there's too many police officers and they are bored and that they are just looking for stuff to do. So,
Yeah, and part of our job is the traffic enforcement, and that was part of our conversation is some of those numbers had trended downward over the last year or two. Part of that was a result from COVID, you know, the backlash of COVID and into moving forward, and now we're kind of back to standard operating procedure, and we have the staff to do those things and be out there and be proactive and let the community know what we're doing and that we're out there. You know, proactivity I take every day rather than reactive activity because a proactive police department deters the crime and the violence, and that's what we're trying to do.
and I don't disagree with you. I just want to make you aware that there's that perception out there, and perception is reality a lot of times, you know, I mean, they're just.
It can be.
Yeah, so, I don't know, I guess, well, maybe you can explain here. And I'm not trying to diminish anything, but a rolling stop, I mean, is that, you know, is it really, what's the word I'm looking for? Is it like a flagrant rolling stop, or is it just you know, somebody just didn't?
I guess it would
Stop
depend
sign.
on the, you know, the circumstances. I don't know, you know, I think the statute defines a stop as a complete cessation of movement.
Right.
So,
What about the violations? They see a lot of speeding warnings and whatnot. Is that 32 and a 30, or is it 35 and a 30?
I couldn't speak to, I don't know without pulling the numbers and the reports to see
Right.
what that looks like. I don't know.
Well, again, it gets to the point where sometimes the comments that I've heard are, you know, they feel like it's almost bordering on harassment. But I'm not trying to diminish that at all. I'm just passing the information along, and I've heard that from multiple people that are questioning it, and it's kind of a big deal out there. I was surprised at how many texts I got. Did you see the paper last week of how many, you know, that's BS, whatever, but, you know, I said at least they weren't tickets, they were verbal warnings, and I don't know if it's just, you explained it now that you're reporting everything, and the Times is
if you
putting
look at
everything
the
in there.
national averages, you know, speed is a major contributing factor to the road deaths on the roadways right now.
Right.
That's one of the leading factors. So if we can try and lower that curve in doing our part and slowing people down in our community, I think that has a bigger effect. And, you know, if people are aware that we're out there, does that behavior then stop?
Okay, well, I'm just, like I said, if it's 32 and a 30, that irritates people too, the taxpayers. So, and then I hear about it, and I'm sure some of the other things have been brought up too. Now, I don't know if it was 32 and a 30, and I haven't heard from anybody that actually got a verbal warning, but that was the perception of the people that were surprised at how much bigger that reporting page got in the newspaper. So I just want to pass it on, Chief.
Thank you.
I would, it's interesting you mentioned that, because now that the Quick Trips are up in my neighborhood, and I'm not sure if it's across the board, like speeding, the incidence of speeding has increased since COVID and during COVID, and it has maintained a higher level than previous. But I would almost wonder about running stops, because on Chalupsky Avenue, running stops are common, and much more common than, I can't really correlate it, because it's not fair to correlate because Quick Trip just got there, but it's certainly more traffic. And I don't know if there's more running stops, because we've had that issue on the other side of town
Right.
also. And so I don't know if there's more of it, but I just see more of it.
Well, when you say
just
running,
one
are you
person,
mean
but-
just
Yep.
total disregard for it, or?
Just about.
That,
Oh, okay.
totally disregarded, and a normal,
And just
I'm not
kind
gonna
of a
stop
yield.
unless I can see somebody, and if I don't have.
Oh, yeah, no,
Because we've had to break
Mhm.
more than once for,
right,
I would agree with Bruce.
okay, no,
but,
Yep.
and it's just, you can't, police can't be everywhere. but,
Everywhere,
I just think that the behavior's changed. Or, that's my guess.
And I think you're right, Bruce. I even see it in our neighborhood. You know, there's a four-way stop, and as long as there's nobody in the intersection, people are just blowing through the stop sign. You know, and there's a park right there.
Yeah.
You know, so there's, you know, in the summertime, there's gonna be a lot of bikes and kids and dogs and everything else. So, yeah, I think it is more of a disregard.
Anything else?
no, that was it.
Thank you.
Well, Mayor Jarek, I wanted to bring up the conversation that we had with a citizen about the retail space.
Oh, sure.
In the light
Yes.
industrial. So both the mayor and I were approached by a citizen asking about the 30% restriction of allowing retail space in the industrial park. So at this point, I just went out and took a look at the minutes and the ordinance that was amended. And I don't have an answer for this individual. I will just contact the individual and let them know that the ordinance is intact. And I think at this point, if there is a proposal to allow a variance to that, then that individual would need to come in front of the planning commission. So.
Yep, and we had talked, Josh and I actually internally about this particular business and thought that variance of some kind is probably the right route to take, considering they had to apply for conditional use permit anyway, for that, retail sales in the industrial park, so.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
then I will message that back unless,
No, you certainly can.
okay, then I'll do
Yeah.
that, I'll message that
You
back.
probably see him more often than I do.
Yes.
So. Okay, Josh?
I got nothing. I don't know if you guys saw in the update here, I think it was just last week. We have been officially granted our Tree City USA
Yes.
status. So you will likely be seeing those signs popping up, right next to our Green Step City signs as you come into town soon, so.
Can we just put them up, or does the state have to put them up for us? Matt,
The regulation says the state has to do
I
it.
know. That wasn't the question. Okay, okay. Good. Anything else?
That is all I've got.
Ken?
Real quickly, if you didn't catch it, the mayor and myself were on K-Check this morning, giving a little plug for the comp plan update and our new website, newpragplan.com. And then Patrick also came in today and sat down with Kira and myself to go over the same information. So we'll have coverage from the K-Check, New Prague Times, and then we'll be putting all of that on social media probably tomorrow morning, and on the website as well. So again, if you try to get into it from the local network, it does not work because their firewall blocks it. We haven't figured that one out why, but if you are not at City Hall, if you go to newpragplan.com, it will let you in. I assure you it works. So that's all I had.
Okay, Chief?
Every week, speaking to the traffic conversation we had earlier, we get an update from TZD. It's called the Towards Zero Death Correlation through the state of Minnesota. And to date, in 2023, there have been 47 fatalities on Minnesota roadways. To break that down, in 17 of those were directly correlated to speed infractions. So we get those statistics weekly, so it is a big push throughout the state to slow people down. So we're trying to do our part.
I'm on a law enforcement page or some monitoring thing, and the Department of Public Safety is doing a survey.
Yep.
because they can't figure out why everybody's speeding so
Yep.
much.
And the state patrol have done kind of directed patrols through different parts of the state to try and slow people down in certain areas, 494 and 94 and some of the major highways, so. It is something we're trying to work on, and we don't wanna see fatalities on our roadways.
And I agree. Again, I was just passing that along, and there's a big difference between 30, being pulled over for 32 and a 30 and a 45 and a 30. And I'm not trying to downplay the risk, but I just wanted you to know that there's this underlying tone that I've heard from multiple people that it's a big discussion, so they're.
Anything else, Tim?
No, nothing else. Thank you.
Okay. Matt? All right. Well, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved?
Second?
There's been a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And then we will have a special city council closed meeting.